All right, so we are about less than 24 hours away from opening day, where the Mets take on the Brewers with Jose Quintana on the mound for opening day. And I thought that since opening day was pushed back one day, we thought that we would take advantage of our last day of non-counting baseball, and we're going to talk about some things going into the season. I've got Road here with me once again, and we are going to just talk about, some predictions. We're going to have some hot takes in here, and we'll just talk about everything going into the season here. Kind of a wrap-up live stream of the offseason / spring training into the regular season. So let's get this thing going. Welcome to Mets Weekly. You guys know the drill by now. Play the intro. All right, so for those of you in here and for those of you watching on playback, for those of you who are about to come on here, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Hit the thumbs up button. It really helps us out. Hit notification bell, of course, because we also have our podcast that comes out every single Tuesday. Premieres at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. So now here's the deal. The Mets have a very interesting opening day roster, and I think we're going to start off with that, obviously. That is to our right. I personally think it is interesting because, once again, we do have JD Martinez hanging out in the wings in PSL right now. He's going to be there for the week, and then he's going to play some AAA games. And then also the Mets brought in Yohan Ramirez and Michael Tonkin. Sean Reed-Foley is going to the injured list with a shoulder impingement, which is 15-day IL. Now, obviously, on the screen, you see undecided roster spots. This graphic was made before that was announced yesterday, so I apologize for that. But just so you know, Sean Reed-Foley is not on the opening day roster. Michael Tonkin and Yohan Ramirez are the last two spots. We saw Zach Short make the opening day roster as well. And it also looks like without Senga, they are going to start off with a 5-man rotation, which makes sense, mainly because you get a lot of off days in April. So, Rode, what do you think about the opening day roster? We won't spend much time on it, but obviously it's a topic of interest.
Yeah, I was definitely a bit skeptical of Sean Reed-Foley going to IL. I know a lot of other people because he literally pitched the other day, but he was actually injured. I'm not going to suspect a bit too much there.
Yeah.
I think Yohan Ramirez is already on the 40-man roster, so I kind of get it. I'm not too sold on. I am a little bit skeptical about Yohan Ramirez's ability to be an effective reliever, especially. I'm sure he's not going to be pitching much in high leverage, but he's got nasty stuff. Can't wait to see how it goes. I do think he has a new slider. I think he has 2 variants of sliders now that I don't believe he had last year. So maybe that's something Stearns really likes. Michael Tonkin, I'm happy he made the bullpen. He's going to give us more than one inning. He'll pitch in garbage time. It's always good to have an arm like that. I was hoping Jose Budo could be more of that, or Lucchesi, but Tonkin's a solid reliever, and he can pitch in many different roles. So. Yeah, I wasn't too surprised by this outcome, especially after Sean Reed-Foley's kind of subpar outing the other day in spring. Yeah, sorry for the cough. I like this bullpen quite a bit. I hope Edwin Diaz is super fresh and ready to go. I'm sure he's looked great in spring, but I hope he's not as there could be a rusty adjustment period if we do see that, I hope it doesn't last as too long. I'm optimistic. I think I guess we'll get to record predictions later. Let's go Mets.
Yeah, I mean, here's one of the main thoughts that I obviously had, and I don't know if it's a negative thought or just a peculiar thought. Zach Short and Joey Wendell on the roster at the same time. That personally gave me a feel of the Guillorme and Mendick from last year. I could be wrong again, but I kind of wanted to put on another outfielder, but I guess DJ Stork kind of he counts as an outfielder, but he's kind of being designated as a designated hitter until JD Martinez comes up. I understand having, you have Jeff McNeil who could be that fifth outfielder or whatever, but, putting him in the corner, I mean, that's a power position, and he does not have the power to be a corner outfielder, in my opinion. But, that's the versatility of Jeff McNeil that everybody likes to rave about. But other than that, I mean, some of them were not surprises, of course. Narvaez was going to be the backup catcher no matter what. If people wanted Nito here or whatever, I know that a lot of pitchers like Nito, whatever. But overall, I mean, there's a few peculiar picks that they went with, but I do think that this roster will be a little bit different as the season goes along, especially in the bullpen, of course. Mainly because, if you don't see any bounce back pieces perform, or, maybe Adam Ottavino struggles, or Drew Smith does his Drew Smith thing. And, I'm interested to see what they actually do, because there is depth in AAA, and we saw the AAA roster as well, which is not bad. I'm not going to lie. I think that the AAA roster is probably the most quality that I've seen in a long time, which is impressive.
I mean, last year that AAA roster on opening day was like pretty insane. It turns out there's unfortunately a good chance that all those players are, quadruple A players. Besides Alvarez, of course. I have tons of faith in Mauricio as well. I love him, but you never know. But yeah. Especially I'd really like to see, obviously Christian Scott's up there now. Obviously Luis Angel Acuna's up there. Drew Gilbert's up there. Dom Hamill's up there. I might be missing a name or two. I think I just had the roster up. But yeah, they're all one call away. If Acuna makes progression with his mechanics or something and starts pulling fly balls, we got him one call away. I'm sure Jet Williams isn't too far away. If he does really start to show how advanced he is. So, this is going to be exciting in AAA. There's tons of guys to watch at that level. If you want to get MILB TV, it's like $5. I think, isn't it like $5 for the year or something? It's something really cheap.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is pretty crazy. It's a really good deal. I do like watching minor league baseball. There is a few points in the season where I am watching it religiously over the Mets, because they piss me off. And as compared to them, there's not really much. You don't really need to root for minor league baseball winning a championship, unless you're, a blowhard or whatever. But this was a question that was put in the chat a few moments ago from LGMU. So I'm going to guess that's Let's Go Mets University. I don't know if that's but that's just like the cautious giveaway right there. Who would be an underrated player in the Mets lineup? Now, we do have a topic about that actually in our predictions, but in terms of the lineup, I think it's the most underrated player, which, I mean, my most underrated player is a pitcher going into this year. But as for underrated player in the lineup, who would you say is someone that you can look out for that's maybe overlooked?
Overlooked is, I think, the big word. I don't think this necessarily is a hitter that it is great offensively. We're talking about an underrated player. I think there's a chance Harrison Bader actually provides really good value.
That would be my same answer too. Yeah, exactly.
He was a 70 WRC plus bat last year. You have to take that into account. There were issues with his health, as there have been. But many years before, he's projected for around a 90 WRC plus. He's had solid offensive years before. He's fully healthy right now, to what we know publicly. And if Harrison Bader is a 90 WRC plus bat, with his he's a top 10 defender in the game, in my opinion, just all around. And and his base running value, like if he's giving us a 90 WRC plus, that is one of the best signings Stearns made this offseason. And at that value at your 9-hole, that cannot be overlooked. So yeah, I think he's the most underrated player in this lineup right now.
Yeah, I don't know if he would actually contribute to the level of what Tommy Pham was doing last year, but I mean, from what we have seen, I mean, overall the hitting profile for Harrison Bader, it does play, and I think that it's something that some people need to kind of look at, considering the fact that, you know, he's probably going to be batting ninth for us. I mean, it's going to make the lineup deep if he does produce. Obviously, there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more of a, let's say, value of him next to left-handed pitching. But again, that was also another factor with Tommy Pham last year, where he was somebody who was known to kill left-handed pitching. And then he was brought in and they said he couldn't hit right-handed pitching. And then he said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to hit right-handed pitching. And that's kind of how Tommy Pham just became one of the most productive bats in our lineup last year. And he was great. And he got us a really good prospect at the deadline in Jeremy Rodriguez. But I think that, you know, there's some guys on this team that at their best, they can give you a lot of value. And, you know, like we've said in any spot on this roster, you know, there really is just no way for the Mets, if they're aiming for 2025 as their full-on compete year, there's no way for them to lose. There really just isn't, in my opinion. And, you know, if they get the value from these guys, great. If they don't get the value from these guys, or they're getting value but they're not winning, they get assets at the deadline. So I think that, you know, when you look at this roster, it always will be a wait and see, but whatever you're waiting for and seeing for, there's no panic behind it. And I think that that's one thing that you have to look at with the Mets opening day roster, with how they are kind of running things under David Stearns in 2024. So I obviously want to get into the predictions, but for some reason, I am having a technical difficulty with let's say, I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty with finding the editorial version of this graphic. So I'm going to have to somehow find it, but I will switch over to obviously our picks that we're going to make here. So I'm probably not going to be able to fill them in as we go along, but I will make sure to find a way to put the finished product on the screen. But as for season predictions, we're going to go through a major league version, and we're also going to go through a minor league version, because obviously there are a lot of prospects that to have your eye on this year, with the Mets kind of being in this transitional / competing year / having guys in this position that can be substituted in. And I think that that's something that, you know, we do need to talk about, and it needs to get a decent amount of light, because the Mets farm system is at a current situation where, you know, it's probably the best it's been for a long time, and it continues to get better. And I think it's really impressive how they've kind of set this up. And, you know, I am impressed with how they've kind of given a decent spotlight to the young guys. And, you know, they want to make the team younger. And I've talked about that for a long time. I want to make the team younger, and, you know, that's the best way that they can succeed for a sustainable success. So I am very impressed with how they have handled this so far. So obviously, let's start with the MLB portion of this. Now, I want to start with most underrated, because we did just got a question about that. So we'll carry that in. Obviously, Harrison Bader was the talk about it in our lineup, but overall on this roster, the most underrated player going into 2024, who do you got? What do you think?
How about you go first? Because there's a bunch of candidates that I'm thinking through.
Yeah, I think that for me, I obviously have a pitcher going in for this one, and I am going to say Sean Manaea, because I think that there's no real reason as to why nobody realizes how lucky we are to have a pitcher like Sean Manaea. And for me, I love my strikeout pitchers. Like, that's just my thing. And Sean Manaea is a man who can get a lot of strikeouts from the left side. He gets a lot of whiffs. He's got the brand new arsenal, of course, the new sweeper. I don't know. Was he the one who was talking about he was working on a new cutter, or is that somebody else? I don't know. If it was him.
He does have a new cutter.
He does have a new
yes.
cutter. Okay. Yeah. So, and then obviously the fastball has always been a plus for him, even before he had this whole reinvention with Driveline, of course. So I would say Sean Manaea as the most underrated because, not to mention, before JD Martinez came into the mix, he was probably the best signing, I would say, like out of the entire offseason. And I think that, he is going to show quite I wouldn't say frontline, but near frontline value this season, because I think that, he's kind of in that upswing part of his career right now where everything was starting to click for him last year, but he has so much left to give at age 32 right now, kind of in the upswing of his prime right now. And, I think that, we're getting some extra velocity from him. We're getting more of a kitchen sink from him. And I think that he is going to be a huge contributor as to why this team succeeds if we are in that position this year. And so I am gonna go with Sean Manaea on that one because, I've loved him for a long time. So I'm glad that the Mets did bring him in with the approach that they've obviously taken with the short term with him. And I really do hope that, if he does reject it and has a good season, I would love to bring him back. I would love to bring back a guy like Sean Manaea. Absolutely. Obviously, the price would have to be right, but a strikeout lefty, that is a rare occurrence, in my opinion. I think that that's something that you really should cherish from starting pitching if they do it well. All right, so most underrated for you. You got your pick?
I'm going to go with Jake Diekman. I think Jake Diekman, I haven't heard anyone talking about Jake Diekman. He's going to be a big part of our bullpen. He's going to be in all sorts of leverage. I know he made a mechanical tweak with the Rays, which kind of saved his career. I don't know if it's fair to say that.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he completely turned his season around. He's got nasty stuff. The velocity was down in spring, but we saw that with a couple pitchers. Like we even saw that with Diaz. And Diaz, granted, I think it's obvious he wasn't trying to throw 102. But
yeah.
I really like Jake Diekman, and I'm cautious, not even cautiously. I'm pretty optimistic about the bullpen in general. And I think Jake Diekman is a guy that isn't getting the attention that he needs, but I think he's going to get some big outs for us this year.
Yeah, I think that, Jake Diekman is another one of these rare cases, again, from the left side. You took a lefty reliever. I took a left-handed starter for the most underrated. It's something that we have not seen for a long time. The strikeout lefties, the gas from the left side. The Mets have really had a trend for a long time talking about how, they just don't have any strikeout dominant pitchers, especially from the left side. They've had a lot of contact managers from the left side, and that has gone pretty haywire. I'm personally just like strikeouts from the bullpen. You could have a few guys who do get the ground balls or whatever, but they also need to have that hard sinker. They need to have that disgusting slider to get those ground balls, and also they can get whiffs as well. The Mets really just haven't had that. They've had, a little bit of the inconsistency of potentially maybe getting that with Joely Rodriguez, but it just didn't work out. And Aaron Loop basically just pitched his arm off. Justin Wilson was good for a second, then he wasn't. So there was a few instances where the Mets just had that one lone lefty who was just there because they threw left-handed. They didn't actually have that type of talent. And Jake Diekman, I believe, 37 this year. He's come into a 37-year-old season. He's been a very persistent arm, shall we say, in this league for a long time. And I'm glad that he started to figure it out. Obviously, Tampa is one of the places to do it. And, the one thing about Tampa is that they make you an elite pitcher, but the one gripe about it is that you end up getting hurt. But, I'm glad that, he did go to Tampa, and you're kind of doing that next piece of work from you're continuing on the piece of work that they worked on, and until you can get into that whole pitching lab that you have. So, that's one of those pieces again, and another reliever at $4 million and a vested option as well that gives him some trade value at the deadline if they are not competing. So that's another thing that you can think about. So anything you want to add on Manaea or Diekman? Obviously. Okay. So yeah. So most underrated. So for me, it was Manaea. For you, it was Jake Diekman. Let's go into our best starting pitcher this year, because it's a little weird because, we don't know what the future is going to be with Kodai Senga this year. Currently, he is progressing fairly well, but we don't know what they're going to try and give him in terms of workload this year. There's also talk about the 6-man rotation. There's a lot of options in AAA as well that could come up here. So best starting pitcher for the Mets this year, who do you think that will be?
Yeah, I think for me, like if you're looking at a ceiling, it's still either going to be Senga or Severino. Severino, I'm here's the thing that's interesting about him. Since like 6 years ago, he doesn't have many innings or mileage on his arm. So if he really is healthy, like I could see him getting to 150, maybe a little more too. And I think he's going to pitch well. And I don't think Senga is going to get there because when he comes back, there's going to be a lot of 6-man rotation stuff going on. So, I think I'm going to go with Luis Severino, but on a rate basis, it will be Kodai Senga, meaning that Senga will probably have the best DRA. And if he pitches as much as I think Severino could, or I guess I'm predicting he will, I think he would be better. But,
So you're taking Severino?
I'm going to take Severino. I think it's close. Sorry. Manaea is close up there as well. That's what I meant to say.
All right. So I am actually going to I'm going to put in the first hot take here because why not? I mean, let's just go with Tyler McGill. Let's just do it. Because, why not, right? Because, again, nobody has any expectations for him, right? And, I think that we all know that if he can put it together, he could put it together.
The best starter. The best
starter will be Tyler McGill. I'm just, again, this is a hot take. Will it happen? No. But it is going to be one of my hot takes. I'll even, on the graphic, I will make it orange for flaming hot. So I guess that will be our designated sign for if it is a hot take or not. So I'm going to go with Tyler McGill. Listen, I think that as erratic as he may be, there are stretches where you see him as a possible solid arm in the I don't know. I don't want to say frontline arm because I think we've kind of moved a little bit past that. But I think that he really has worked very well in the offseason. And I think that they can definitely progress and maximize his talent overall because I think that, it seems like he has added a cutter and he's very determined to be throwing that a lot. Not to mention the splitter as well. I mean, he's definitely added to that arsenal, and he's kind of pushed away from that change-up curveball, trying to paint the zone, trying to force things in there, and hanging crap all over the zone. That's what we've really seen over spring training. Now, is there still the hard contact concern? Yes. Is there still the fastball, the erratic fastball? Absolutely. But at this point, I think that when we talk about guys with a lot of upside, I think that Tyler McGill's upside is still there. But again, I don't think he's going to be the best starter, but I'm going to put it as a hot take as to where if he is the best starter, I can tell you, I told you so. And if not, well, I guess I'm just going to tell you, well, it was just a hot take. It was not supposed to be right. Exactly. Like, so I can't lose. So I can't lose in that matter. But so the best starter for you, you said Severino. I said
Yeah.
Tyler McGill. Anybody else you want to shout out here? Because we do have a lot of pitchers that could be making starts for us this year.
Yeah, like I said, Manaea. I really like Manaea. I like Manaea a lot. Yeah. He gets strikeouts. He's got a totally new arsenal. I don't think this rotation is as weak to start out as people think. I think it will get us be serviceable until the point where Senga kind of has to come back if we're going to make that postseason run. Yeah. If we can hover around 500 until Senga comes back, I think we're in a good spot. So, and also, like I'm saying, Christian Scott will be here at some point in the summer.
At one point, he will be.
And he is going to be great. So, yeah. He's an underrated
we're already signing him into the Cy Young race. Like we've already written him in already.
2025
Alonso will be a Cub by July 1st. Well, I guess we only have a few months with him. All right, so
also like the trade deadline's in August, right? So it's like
yeah. Most underrated Beatty. We need to cheer Beatty like Philly did with Turner.
I agree with this. No, this is like seriously. This is like positive vibes.
Yeah, try to get New York fans to agree to that.
Dude, Philly fans are really
but that's the city of brotherly love. That's a different story. Come on.
But like New Yorkers, man, we have each other's back.
Ain't no city like Philly. Come on. Philly's one of a kind.
I mean, we need to do this for Jeff. We need to do this for Marte. We need to do this for Beatty. We need to do this for every single player. Every single one.
I think we need to do it for Narvaez the most because I don't think he was welcomed well.
I forget he was on the team last year, but then you realize that like he was catching every other day down the stretch last year when we already sold at the deadline. That was really funny.
Yeah.
I don't know why he was doing that.
I didn't understand any of the logic behind after playing. I mean, all the young guys should have been playing.
Mm-hmm.
Beatty will never be a good third baseman. I mean, yeah, here's the thing with Beatty. I personally think that there's always room for defense to get better. Like there's always ways that defense can get better, whether you play somebody in a certain position, whether you put somebody, play somebody back, play somebody forward. It's all about really the positioning. Do I think that Lindor, no matter what, whoever the third baseman is, will cover a lot of sins from Beatty or Vientos or even Wendell at one point? Yes, he will with the range that he has. And I think that that's the best way that you can make him a better defensive third baseman with Beatty is just kind of picking up the pieces when he does screw up. But it's kind of hard, not to mention, I mean, that was the main thing. If you're talking about him being a good third baseman, I think that Gio Urshela was the perfect way to kind of push him into that direction and kind of, I was going to say groom him, but that is not the right fucking mentor him into that position as to where, maybe he does learn a lot from somebody like Gio Urshela who wouldn't have to play every day, but water under the bridge. He went to Detroit. He was playing
JD Davis was out there,
which is done with his
once again. JD Davis is out there.
JD Davis.
We didn't sign him. He wouldn't sign him.
He was
the guy to motivate Brett Beatty.
I don't think there was a way to motivate Brett Beatty with him. Like I think that you needed kind of a defensive stalwart that was like really good for his career, has like that that two-way ability, shall we say, but they can do it from the bench. They don't need to be an everyday player, and I think Urshela kind of fit that. If it was Longoria like 3 years ago, maybe, but I think Longoria pretty much has 1 foot out the door to retirement. He was playing a lot up, which is done with his arm strength. Yeah, I mean, does Beatty even have he has a decent arm. I do know he has an arm. It's better than Vientos, right? I think so.
I mean,
it's stronger than
Vientos
Vientos.
More raw power,
right?
That might not matter. It's about league average Beatty's arm, but I don't know how compared to third baseman. I'm not sure what it's like.
Ronnie has the best one out of all of them for third base. Like I think that's pretty much.
Ronnie is just, I miss him, man. I miss him a lot. I wish
I
he
do
did
miss
not get hurt.
Ronnie too, but we're gonna have to suppress the pain like we did last year with Edwin Diaz. So,
yeah, man.
Yeah, so he's got league average arm strength.
There's not enough data. For some reason, there was not enough data to calculate his arm strength.
Vientos has a better arm. Does he have a better arm?
I can't
fact check this.
Statcast doesn't have it, so.
Yeah, Statcast doesn't even have his arm. Wow.
Mm-hmm. I will be right back.
Yeah.
So you can get into this next.
Yeah, I'll talk to the chat here, but yeah, overall, again, like what I said with Beatty, I think that there was a decent situation where you probably could have brought somebody in to mentor him, as to kind of like easing him in, and I don't think Joey Wendell was going to prove that at all. But listen, I think that, overall, when you look at it, Beatty, no matter what, whether you put him in the best position to succeed or not, he still has a lot to prove. Whether it is as a third baseman, whether it is offensively, whether it is overall as a player, there is expectation for him to be a contributor on the major league roster. And that's what he wasn't last year. And I think that that's kind of what you have to look at with Brett Beatty is he actually a rosterable player going into the next year or going into June or going into July? You really have to evaluate that, because it's really kind of just at one point, how long are you going to wait? I mean, he is 24 years old. He's not, the youngest of the young. He's not 22. He's not 21. So, you're getting to a point with Brett Beatty where, and a lot of people have talked about this before, where, it's getting late early for him. And I think that that's kind of how you have to look at it for him. Anything else you want to add with Beatty and him as a player, obviously, because he's going to be a big topic this year?
Yeah, I mean, starting tomorrow, let's hope that he really gets his career started. There's a lot of things he has to work on, but we know he's been putting in the work. There's putting in the work and seeing the results are separate. But there's nothing more important to really life than disciplining yourself to actually get better and do the things, because it's hard work. I really hope that can pay off for Beatty this year. I as I've said in prior streams and episodes of Mets Weekly, I am not the highest on Brett Beatty. And I really don't, I'm really not sure that he is I'm really just not sure he is the future third baseman of this team. It would be really hard for me to be convinced of that, considering all the holes that I think he has. But, he has a chance he has the job. It's his job this year. And if he can be a league average bat, I think that's so much more value than we realize that maybe we could have gotten. Because if Brett Beatty's a league average bat, if he's a 100 WRC plus, his OPS was in the 500s last year. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, he had an OPS in the realm of Oswaldo Cabrera, who just homered today. So maybe that's not a great comparison. But Oswaldo Cabrera is not a guy who ever had hitting upside as a prospect.
He was near the Tim Anderson level last year. Like, that's how bad he was, like, overall in production. But at least he homered like 9 more times than him last year. But we were seeing some really bad. I mean, we were seeing Carter Keyboom levels of bad. Like that's how it was last year. And hopefully we do. I mean, I hope that he does again, because I mean, I've been hard on him for a long time. I hope he does, and if he does, I'm going to give him credit. And that's just how it's going to be. Whether I troll or not, that's kind of how I look at it. Is at the end of the day, he needs to show that he's an MLB player. He hasn't shown that yet, so that's kind of how the current situation with Brett Beatty is, and it never comes down to that. Now, yeah, Frank and Andrew are not available today. They wanted to be, but yeah, listen, I am excited. I am excited. There's tons of players I'd love to see this year, and I think that we'll get into. Speaking of players that we are excited to see this year, let's go to breakout player, because there is a lot of young talent on this roster coming up, and you also have a lot of young pitching prospects coming up. Obviously, I don't think we'll go into that, but somebody at the currency on this roster who hasn't had that season yet, obviously, and this is kind of where they take that step forward to their breakout season. My breakout pick just got put on the IL today, so that kind of gets Sean Reed-Foley.
Oh, Sean Reed-Foley,
so
yeah.
I guess I'll have to shift to somebody else. Because, with Sean Reed-Foley, we just never know if he's ever going to be healthy. Maybe that's the last time we see him all year, to be honest, because he's had a lot of health issues.
He's out of options, too. So if Ramirez...
Yeah, he's also out of options, too. So we'll see what happens. But breakout player for you, who do you think?
I mean, who else can I go? It's Christian Scott, everyone. I'm telling you, this is our next ace. This is our next frontline guy. It's Christian Scott. Christian Scott is going to break out this year. He is so good. He is so freaking good. And I cannot wait for him to get into this rotation. I hope it's ASAP because I think this rotation could use him right now.
Do I put that as a chat? Do I put that as a hot take? What do you think?
Is it a hot take? I mean, he's our best pitching prospect. He's been striking.
He is our best pitching prospect, but you never know. Again, you never know.
He was the best pitcher in the minor leagues last year.
He was the best pitcher in the minor leagues last year, but we never know.
Gained velocity
maybe because you never know with the Mets. It's all in their hands with Christian Scott breaking out or not, because they still have to call him up, and you know how the Mets like to call up their guys at age 29. So
that was Epler.
You never know.
Look, that was Epler. Epler liked to do that.
I'm just saying. I'm warning you. Okay, so breakout player for me. I think that the only way that you can personally lead this up, I think it's pretty. This one's a pretty easy cop out, but at the trajectory that he has gone, and just how I think that you're just going to get a better season from him because he has more experience in the majors. Let's go with Francisco Alvarez. I mean, at this point, that he's going to be your catcher for the future. I don't really see anybody comparing to him at any point as of right now, especially that other catching prospect that is in the minor leagues right now who had a really tough season. But I think that, Francisco Alvarez, we're already talking about extensions for this guy, and he rightfully does deserve to be extended. Now, the thing about Alvarez, there is some concern of consistency with him. I can definitely agree with that. I would say the quality of contact definitely has some iffiness in streaks, in strides, but obviously you don't really worry about that with him in the long term because he's so young, and he's 22 years old. He's not even close to the prime of his career right now, and he's only going to get better at from what we have seen. Sean Reed-Foley, shoulder impingement is what he's going on the IL for. And I personally saw it coming. I don't think this is a phantom IL thing with Billy Epler, the Billy Epler type of style. I don't think it's like that because the velo was pretty significantly down for him in that last outing that he had. So there was obviously something up with him. And I mean, he wanted to pitch, but I guess just something just didn't work right. But so yeah, I mean, Francisco Alvarez, I think that's just the perfect pick there because maybe this isn't the year that he fully puts himself on the map, but I think that he's just going to continue to be better. And I think that when you look at it from the perspective of prospects, he's the best product of them so far. And hopefully you do get another 25 home run year, and then you get a little bit more consistency of maybe the OPS over 800 or something like that, or you see a little bit more, you see him walk a little bit more or be a little bit more selective. But overall, the raw ability that we saw last year, he wasn't chasing that much. I mean, the approach was decent, but there is some concerns of consistency consistency with quality of contact with the huge uppercut swing that he does have. Let's just say that.
Yeah, man. But like I'm worried a little bit that like I think I'm worried that some Mets fans have too much expectations for Alvarez this year. There are quite a few holes in his offensive game that kind of scare me a little bit. So I'm not like on a catcher basis. Like Francisco Alvarez is a well above average hitter for a catcher. I would not be shocked if Alvarez is pretty close to a league average bat in general this year.
Yeah.
Kind of like last year. I think he'll have a better WRC plus and WOBA than last year and OPS.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I'm pretty confident in his ability to hit more than 30 home runs. The pace that he was at last year was made that pretty clear. And especially with the inconsistent play that he had last year. So I'm really like, I'm pretty confident. I think Alvarez can get up to 35. And like, I think that his defense is so good in every facet. His arm is so much better. He's a fantastic framer. He's a great blocker. I just, with the consistency with the bat is something that I do have concerns about. His quality of contact is not great on a batted ball by batted ball basis. He can get absolutely a hold of one when he gets a hold of one, but the consistency is going to be a problem. But like I said, the average WRC plus for a catcher is much lower than 100. So
yeah,
Francisco Alvarez is a top 10 catcher in the game, in my opinion, pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I would definitely support extending him. I just don't want. I hope that people won't get disappointed by what his OPS might look like, or maybe his WRC plus isn't like in the 120s. Like I think it's more going to be in the 105 to 110s this year. So I'm expecting a great year. I just think people are expecting the wrong things from Alvarez, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
they love him for maybe the wrong reasons.
If you saw our projection series, obviously that just wrapped up, we also did a encore of that on the channel last night. If you guys want to see all 30 episodes, they're all in one place. But I'm pretty sure I had him at about 108. About 108 for me for like, and obviously I did projections from the 75th percentile outcome, obviously. So the 100 percentile outcome, I mean, what are you looking at? Like 116, something like that. Like that's the best like I'm looking at, of course, because I mean, there is a lack of consistency with him in terms of quality of contact, just overall batted ball data. The contact rates can be a little bit finicky at times, but he doesn't chase. And that's the good thing, that the pitch selection, I'd say, is a lot better than I think that a lot of people thought it would be. And I think that that's something that's going to help him go far and maybe improve that and get a little bit more better pitch selection. And, I think that we'll see what happens with him. But again, at 22 years old, I'm not concerned yet. I'm not concerned yet about, the hitting profile or anything. I think that right now you need to see him fully grow into that bat yet. And, whether it is more explosive than the average catcher, I think that, just him being so young at this point, you've only seen a little bit of it. Let's just say that.
I've projected Alvarez for 105 WRC plus this year.
Yeah.
If you want me to get more specific, I did make my own projections on a Google Sheets. So I have Francisco Alvarez at a 105 WRC plus, a 26.2 K percentage, an 8.7 walk percentage, 34 home runs, and 3.5 WAR. While the WRC plus might not be as high as a lot of us would want it to be, the power output is undeniable, especially from a catcher. The defense is amazing. And so I could refine these a little bit and, maybe send Carson these projections. Maybe you could post it on Twitter or something.
Yeah.
Just see my perspective. If you guys would be interested in that on all these players, but I do have to add JD Martinez to the list. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't have
we'll make sure to keep you guys updated on that.
yeah, I don't have a projection for JD Martinez. He kind of screwed up my my flow of the episodes going out, obviously. But yeah, I think
120 is probably where he'll be.
Yeah, I definitely have him kind of. I would definitely have him at, even though projection systems have him a little bit low and kind of in that realm of what Vientos is expected to get. I definitely would. His 50th percentile, personally, of him, I think that's definitely has a decent margin as compared to the 50th percentile for Mark Vientos.
I completely agree. I think Steamer's way too low. Like, it's not even that I don't think Vientos can be a good hitter or anything. I think JD Martinez's 50th percentile outcome has to be higher than a 56. Sorry, that a 106 WRC plus or whatever it is. Like, I mean, I think clearly the Mets believe that too, because for David Stearns to block a young player for a 36-year-old, if their 50th percentile, if he thought their 50th percentile outcomes were really that, there's no way we'd make this deal.
Yeah, of course. I think that, at this point, I think that they know when it comes to sustainability and just overall in his career, at the trajectory he is going. I mean, let's be real for a second. There isn't really a sign of JD Martinez slowing down in what he is, expected to be with the Mets. Like, for the next year, maybe they do bring him back if he was so phenomenal and such a big factor to the offense and he helps us get to the playoffs and make a deep playoff run or whatever. Yeah, sure. But he's not a long-term fix. But like, I think we almost can guarantee that he is going to give you anything better than any DH has ever given for the Mets, because this position has only been here for a few years, but it's been a massive problem. So, at this current moment, I think that, when you look at it with JD Martinez, you almost can slide it in as this guy is going to give you a 120. I think that, is a 120 bat maybe like, I don't know, 75th percentile outcome for Mark Vientos at his very best? Maybe, considering the power. Yeah,
I think a 120 WRC plus is close to his 100th, personally. Like,
yeah. I think that, I don't know, Vientos, I'm pretty sure I had in the same realm of Alvarez, where Vientos was like 103, 104 for me, I think, something like that. So, obviously I'm kind of like an underachieving type of projector with me, because I think that, I personally use them as benchmarks as compared to, I think that it's the best way to do it, because compared to it actually being predictions, and it kind of puts the difference between predictions and projections, where I can put a benchmark as to where, it's simple to see of the result of him outplaying it or underplaying it. Now, how do we feel about Alvarez? We just talked about Alvarez.
If I could just say, like, Vientos also doesn't like, Alvarez is playing catcher. Like, that is like, he's on his knees for 9 innings a game. That is that does have a bad effect on your hitting. Yeah. And that's why, honestly, I don't know about you, I would have loved to see the Mets bring in Mitch Garver. I thought he would have been a fantastic fit. To be able
you probably
to
would have got him if they didn't have Omar Narvaez this year. Like, if they didn't still were paying him. Yeah.
Then we probably could have had JD Martinez in the lineup. I don't know. Yeah, it depends. I think it worked out with JD Martinez for sure. Like, I think he's a very
and that's the best way, I think. Bat. Yeah, I think that's the best way to maximize Alvarez's offense, is to obviously take him off his, take him off the ground and take him out of his position and have him DH a few times, maybe twice a week or something. I'd like to see Alvarez DH in this time before we're waiting for JD Martinez. Like, I want to see that, obviously. Of course, Narvaez does not make the lineup that deep with, Bader and Marte there and everything. But I think that, you do need Alvarez's bat in the lineup, and you just want to keep him fresh. You do have some off days, of course, but, I think that, that is going to take a toll, but, right now we're not going to see that at age 22. And, we'll see what happens with that. Do you call up Scott for the Mets? You want to answer this one?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You're calling up Scott. And you listen, I could probably pull it up here, but I mean, Christian Scott, I could pull it up here of a thumbnail that is going to be, I think, of one of our clips that's going to go out. It's going to go out this week from the podcast this week. It's this one. So I think you understand our stance with that one as to we think that at this point,
beast.
He's a beast. I mean, he really is. I mean, he really is just accelerated like crazy. But, when you look at it, I think that right now he is ready for the big leagues. Like, he really is. His stuff is ready there. Like, I think it is. In terms of workload, maybe you need to look at it. But, and maybe he needs to, build up that process, like we said on the podcast, where he can build up his arm in the major leagues. Especially if, any of these relievers don't really do well, you can add a little bit more depth to the bullpen. But in terms of his stuff and his skills ready for the majors, hell yeah, 100%. He is ready for the major leagues. This also was a question.
If we can,
do you call up Jet Williams?
Do I call up Jet Williams? Maybe later in the year. It's like
we'll see. Kevin Parada's way long down the line.
Well, the thing about Kevin Parada,
we'll see what happens.
With Kevin Parada, I think his season kind of gets too much of a bad rep. I get that he is.
Yeah.
He is an older prospect. He was a college draft pick. At the end of the day, playing catcher is a big toll on your body offensively. And he had a 115 WRC plus and A plus ball. He played 14 games of AA. He still had 3 homers. He didn't hit well, but the power was there. I think, Kevin Parada might be moving down a bit because of all the other risers in the system. It's not time to give up on him. I wouldn't be against moving him for a piece that can really help us win. And even with Acuna, I don't know if Acuna can develop some offensive habits like Ozzy Albies. If we can, Ozzy Albies, his raw power is very subpar. It's near the bottom of the league. Ozzy Albies does not have good raw power. Let me make sure I'm correct about his max exit velo.
Albies is not really a big raw power guy, but I think that the hitting philosophy for him was just a perfect lightning in a bottle situation. And if you could get that from Luis Angel Acuna, I mean, that would turn, the mind around. But I don't know. I don't really see much of an offensive upside from him at this point. But, you're going to have to change a little bit, with him. But there's also some concerns I have with the pitch selection with him. That's something I don't really like. The pitch recognition isn't the best. Parada is 23. I think he's 22. He's 23. But Drew Gilbert, obviously that is a wait and see. He is one phone call away, personally, I think. But you might see him in September. Because I think they wanted him to get his footing. Ryan Clifford, I don't see getting called up this year, maybe not even next year. He's pretty young. He's 20 years old. Alex Ramirez ain't even close.
He's not coming up this year.
Yeah, Austin Adams was just traded to the A's, so that's not.
I forgot about that. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's actually on the screen right here, above your comment right here, and then Josh Walker, he's pretty much on his way out.
I don't hate Josh Walker. I think he's got good stuff, man. I really do.
Listen, I think the control has definitely taken a dip for him, and just the overall quality of competitive pitches for him has really gone down since he got hurt 2 years ago, and I think that's something that's really been a concern, and that's kind of kept him from getting his feet wet in the major leagues for a decent amount of time.
Yeah, I feel you. Also, back to Acuna, though, just another point I wanted to make.
Go ahead.
We're talking about Albies. Albies in his 2017 prospect report, which is when he made his major league debut. You want to know what his his potential game power grade was, it was 30, 3-0. And he's hitting 30 plus homers a year. There are mechanics you can teach hitters to overperform the raw power. And I don't have all the stuff. I have talked to like some prospect people who have some more private data. Like during the trade deadline, I was told that Luis Angel Acuna's max exit velo was 111, which is right in line with Albies. So look, if the Mets are trying to teach him new hitting mechanics, that could be a reason he struggled. I think, and maybe I just think that Luis Angel Acuna, he is in AAA. I'm not going to give up on his approach. It's like, because Albies so close to the majors, like had no power, for lack of a better just way to say it, like he did not have power even when he got to the league. So I hope that that's kind of an approach we're taking with Acuna.
He does walk a decent amount, Clifford. So it's pretty subjective. And again, we talk about this all the time with strikeouts. For me, I kind of measure the discipline not in strikeouts, in chases and whiffs. So, with him, as long as he's not chasing and not swinging at uncompetitive pitches, that's fine. Obviously, the strikeout rate does need to go down a little bit. Obviously, if you can get it into that 28%, if you can get it into, like that 40th percentile type of thing in the upper levels of the minor leagues, because I don't know where Clifford is going to start this year. He probably will start in Brooklyn.
I think he's in AA. He's in AA.
He's in AA. Wow.
Yeah, awesome. He was too good. He was too good to not get moved up. He wasn't awful with us. He was a 90 Ws plus back. Yes, the strikeouts went up, but he was 25% in Houston. I don't. So
Binghamton is going to be an entertaining team. They'll have Clifford. They'll have Ramirez.
Yeah.
And they're going to have some decent pitching too. They're going to have Tidwell and I think Hamil's in AAA.
Hamil's in AAA. Yeah,
Hamil's in AAA. But other than that, let's get to more predictions, because I think we went off the rails. We've gone through 3 and we're almost an hour in, but I can keep going, obviously.
How about we do MVP? What? Or we could do most overrated MVP. What do you think?
I think we'll go to MVP if you want to do that. Obviously, because we're talking about contributors. Yeah.
I think Pete Alonso for me this year. I really do believe it's going to be Pete Alonso. Maybe I don't think Pete Alonso have the highest WAR on the team, but there is a margin of error of WAR. And WAR technically is subjective. It's an accumulation stat. But offensively, Pete's in a contract year. He was hitting the wrist last year. That hurts. And he came back way too quick.
Yeah.
I think he's just such a prolific hitter, man. And I think he's gonna prove why we absolutely need to keep him on this team going into next year.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna I'll go with in terms of value. I'm gonna say Francisco Lindor just overall as the value. You can't really go wrong with either of these picks. Lindor or Alonso. If you want to be a little bit spicy and say Nimmo.
Edwin Diaz.
Edwin Diaz could be, the pick as well. There's a few guys. Maybe you say Alvarez if you want to be one of those people that are expecting so much from him. But I think, Lindor and Alonso are those top 2 picks. You can't really go wrong. I think that you can see, Alvarez. You can see Alonso or Lindor being the top contributor to this team, whether it is in value, overall offense. And, Pete Alonso's a great pick too. He's in a contract year. It's a scary thing to think about of Pete Alonso in a contract year after we saw what Judge did. Obviously, he's not the caliber of hitter Judge is. But, maybe you do see with the protection around him. Let's not forget this. We have not seen a single game, not a single spring training game at all with JD Martinez behind him. So we will see the effect of that, of maybe Pete Alonso getting a lot more strikes and more opportunities to hit the ball at the ballpark. So I'm excited. I think he just had a connection there. Do you trade Drew Smith? Listen, he is a celebrity here, not for the right reason. Yes, I definitely would trade Drew Smith. I don't even know what he's doing here, to be honest. He probably doesn't have any trade value, to be honest. But I think that, I would definitely, yeah. Acuna is in AAA and he's only 21 years old. Is he 21 or 22? I don't know.
20. What is he? He's young. He is time.
He is young. Yeah, he definitely is young.
And
but he's definitely
brother's
on the
such a
upper
power
side of his
threat
minor league
too.
career.
I'm sure
Yeah.
he's getting some tips from his brother, like, "Yo, like I want to hit."
I'm
power
sure he
like
is.
you. Like,
I'm sure he is. And then when is Acuna a free agent?
never.
they're gonna extend him.
No, he's making $10 million a year for like
which is
5
ridiculous.
more years. Like, yeah,
Which is absolutely
really
ridiculous. And then he has club options for 2027, 2028. Like literally investigate the Braves. This is ridiculous.
I mean, he'll probably never ever leave.
I'll
Braves
trade
anyway.
Drew Smith for a bag of ball. Yeah, exactly. Like he's just whatever. Well, we'll see. He made some changes in the offseason, as we've heard from him for the fourth straight. But whatever.
It was interesting how they
expecting
kept talking about like Drew Smith's confidence, like on end. They would not stop talking about like
he
Drew
looks more
Smith.
confident on the mound, bro. Yeah. So,
man.
but of course, Lindor and Alonso, you're kind of your default picks, but it still works.
Yeah.
Let's go to win total because I think
Should we save that for last? Maybe.
I think I want to save most overrated because I think that's going to be a little bit controversial.
What? So you can hate on the squirrel?
No, I don't think I would have McNeil, to be honest.
I could think of someone else for sure.
Yeah, personally. I think let's just go with win total. Actually, you know what? We'll save that for that's right. Let's go to best hitter because obviously, overall, there's a different concept between a lot of baseball fans of who is the best. Who's a good hitter? You have some people who say this guy has the highest batting average. He's the best hitter. This guy has the highest OPS. He's the best hitter. This guy has the best baseball savant page. He's the best hitter. So I say that it is subjective, but there is, basically pushing aside that subjective point, there is a right answer. But
for this lineup, it goes without saying it's Pete Alonso.
Yeah. Okay.
Pete Alonso is the best hitter in this lineup.
Yeah. And guys, let us know in the chat. I mean, we have talked about being all for this for years. Pete Alonso batting second to get him the most plate appearances. Would you do that if you're the Mets? But I expect him to be batting third with JD Martinez, but he needs to be up in the first inning. Like, let's just be real for a second.
And he's going to be. It's a lot better than batting fourth. But like, if you notice, like the Astros, like Jordan was batting fourth. Sometimes he bat fifth with Dusty Baker. With Joe Espada, he's batting second. I think
exactly.
It's just so important that we
Joe
get
Espada, my man, Joe Espada.
Yeah,
man.
It would have been nice to have his manager, but Mendoza, here's the thing: if you don't really notice who the manager is, he's probably doing a good job.
Exactly. Especially in New York. Let's just say that there's a huge hot seat there. I'm going to pick Pete Alonso as well. I mean, it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a unanimous selection because at some points you probably could say JD Martinez. But in terms of the workload that Pete Alonso's carried for 5 years, you just expect him to do it again, no matter who is batting behind him or who is batting in front of him. Hopefully we can maximize his production as compared to what he's been doing for the last 5 years with more pitches in front of him. Not to mention the batting average with balls in play last year was pretty low.
It was 205. That's
205.
His quality conduct is completely unsustainable. He's going to be better than last year. His W is supposed to be
a lot better. Yeah. Hopefully he is. But I obviously want to see the 53 home run type of power as well. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how the lovely Eric Chavez dupes this thing out this year. And if he ruins Pete Alonso, I will find him and ruin him. I probably should not say that live on stream. Okay. Best reliever? This might have a unanimous one.
Actually, that's a really tough
Yeah.
question. Really tough question. I really
Yeah,
have
it
to
is.
think
It is
deeply
really
about
tough.
that. You know,
I
I
think that
feel
you
like
and
it's
me,
Edwin Diaz, though. Like, I feel
yeah,
like it just might be
probably.
him. It could be him.
It could be him, but let's not forget, coming off of an injury, and we just never know.
Yeah, I mean, I expect
Um,
him to win relief pitcher of the year, but there's that year off. He's looked awesome in spring. He feels awesome from the press
yeah,
conferences. He sounds like he's back. He thinks
yeah.
he's back. I'm sure that Edwin Diaz is like, if Edwin Diaz is not the best reliever of this pen, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, it would be. And not to mention best reliever Drew Smith. Reliver. Yeah, reliver. Because he continues to relive. He never dies. So yeah, I mean, I gotta go with Edwin Diaz as well. I think that we're both on the same page. I mean, you and me are big fans of him. We've been fans forever. I mean, I
Through
was
the
one of the
darkest
original guys
days.
to defend him. Uh in the, I mean, he's just Edwin freaking Diaz. He has the most lethal pitch in all of baseball. I would say in spring, there were a few concerns. I'd say like there wasn't much, but overall the pitch shape, the pitch quality is the same. Like it is the same. The velo has to come back a little bit. He had a few control issues, few uncompetitive pitches. But I think that once he gets into the swing of things, once he gets that grip back, he's gonna be fine. Is it possible you don't see him throwing 100 out of the gate tomorrow if he's coming in a save situation in the ninth inning? Because closers can only come into the ninth inning. Let's not forget. But I will say, I don't see any sign of this guy slowing down. And, he's a $102 million reliever for a reason. And he's going to show that,
He's the best in the game. It's kind of that
He is,
simple
yeah.
to me, Like, I mean, I know Josh Hader struck out the side today, but, I'm still taking Edwin Diaz over Josh Hader with respect to him. Yeah.
I mean, Josh Hader's great, but Edwin Diaz said that I'm up to come in at any point, and Josh Hader has made it very strictly saying, I will only pitch in one inning. I will only pitch in the ninth inning. Imagine paying $95 million for that.
It's interesting. He used to pitch 2 innings at a time.
He did.
That's what's so interesting.
Yeah, he did.
It,
And I heard a lot of stuff about him complaining about having to go 2 innings, of how he was talking about that in Milwaukee, and that's the reason why he never signed an extension with them, apparently. And apparently that's just the rumor, of course. But
maybe
that
was why they traded him. Maybe
Might be.
Maybe he just didn't want to do what they asked him. I don't know. But it like health, like with the pitchers, there is a crisis among just pitchers getting hurt now. So I understand it. Like I have to respect it, but it is like Edwin Diaz went 2 full innings multiple times last 2022. I can't believe he didn't pitch last year, man. Yeah, he's back. Can't wait. Let's win.
Yeah, we've been seeing some behind the scenes of the Trumpets this year, of what it's going to look like at Citi Field. I would turn the lights down a little bit. I'm not trying to give anybody a seizure, to be honest, but overall, the setup does look good at Citi Field. Let's just say
Diaz gives batters he faces seizures with that 50K percentage, man. So that's
yeah, man. And hopefully it's at 60 this year. So because he has some competition with Josh Hader, who's at 100% so far.
100%.
Yeah. So let's not forget. But yeah, again, Edwin Diaz, pretty self-explanatory. So let's go to most overrated. Now, this is going to be probably negative. Now, I want to remind everyone in the chat, before you get mad at us for saying anything about who's overrated or who's not, overrated does not mean bad. It does not mean bad. So if I were to tell you Joey Wendell's overrated, that's not true. He just sucks. So again, if people, sorry if that came to a surprise for you, but when I guess people, if they're hyping him up, and he maybe they just need to lower their expectations a little bit. Is there anybody that you would like to throw onto the iron here?
This is all respect. This is all with love. These players are on my team. I love all these guys, no matter how much I might get upset with them if they don't play well. These guys are on my team. I'm rooting for every single player. And this guy, he's a father now. He is he's a great guy. He really takes himself accountable, and he wants to succeed. That being said, Jeff McNeil has to go here for me.
Okay.
I really hope that he is good this year. I think there's a chance he'll bounce back. I definitely do. I'm just not sure that I think a lot of people are expecting another batting title out of him, which, in 2024, it is really hard to be effective in the way Jeff McNeil has been, and he's been very inconsistent.
But Road, look at Luis Arise.
He went 0 for 5
Luis
today.
Arise.
He went 0 for 5 today.
Did he go over 5? No, not Luis Arise. That you're lying to me.
Yeah, man. No, McNeil's going to provide value. He's going to play great defense. Yeah. He's going to run the bases fine. He's going to be a league average bat, probably at worst. But I'm not sure how valuable Jeff McNeil is offensively to an offense, especially when the postseason comes around. I know he's had that huge hit. You can't take that away from him. But if you have too many hitters like Jeff McNeil, you might have trouble really making a deep run in the postseason. He's a very solid player. But I do think some people are overestimating, what he might at this point in his career be capable of. But I hope he proves me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too, because if he doesn't, then I'm gonna be rooting to throw him out of here. But this one is a little bit hard for me because I think that if you talked about it from last year, I probably would have said this was the most underrated addition in terms of it. But I think it's just come in the terms of the Mets and how they've kind of looked at it recently of basically giving him the ball tomorrow. I'm going to go with Jose Quintana because I think that there were better options for somebody on opening day. And when I do say that, he most likely, with me putting those words into the air, he most likely will go nine scoreless tomorrow and just dominate. But I think that just in terms of the Mets are overrating him here to get the opening day ball. Now, even if opening day starter doesn't matter, when it comes to Kodai Senga is out, I would have given this to Luis Severino or Sean Manaea. I would have done that. I
mean, Jose Quintana is the safest pitcher in this rotation.
He is the safest.
By a clear mile, I'd say.
Yeah, so, of course.
I think Quintana is underrated, actually. I think everyone, this is a big disagreement I think we have. I don't think either of us think Quintana is an ace or anything, but
no,
I feel like Quintana is getting a little bit of disrespect, just because he doesn't throw 99, which is fine. Obviously, he's not an ace. And I think people, he's a very solid guy to have in the back end of your rotation. And I think that I just, the Twitter discourse, I've been seeing, I've seen a lot of people really doubt him and act like he's a bum, which he's not. He provides.
Oh, no, he's not a bum by any points, but I would just like to have the best weapon available as the first game, give you the best. And it's Jose Quintana. It's just I don't see him as the number one guy I'm giving the ball to on opening day.
Well,
and that's why I'm saying that.
If a guy like Luis Severino was named opening day starter, in the big picture, this doesn't matter at all. But it kind the amount of shit that we would get from Yankee fans and fans around the league, would be crazy.
Of course, but I mean, we get shit regardless.
Mets, they're starting Luis Severino, a wash Yankees starter. That's what they'd say.
Yeah,
and Quintana is a safe, solid starting pitcher
He's solid. Of course, he is solid, but I'm not giving him the day one ball. I just wouldn't. He wouldn't have been the first.
It doesn't matter.
The only guy I would consider less than him is Adrian Hauser. Personally, I mean, I would give the ball to I would consider giving it to McGill over because he's done it before.
He's done
You
it
know?
twice in essence, like not officially opening day, but home opener, which is just as much as opening
Yeah.
day, really. So like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this was a good pick for the opening day. And listen, he could make me look stupid in 24 hours. But I just don't think it was a good pick. Guys, let us know in the chat if you guys think Jose Quintana was a good opening day pick. I don't know. It's just kind of meh to me. I think that there was a better option to kind of showcase, the new pitchers that you brought in, such as Severino or Armanaya. I want McGill. You want McGill? Well, McGill did it on opening day, but again, you probably, if you do get McGill on opening day, he's probably only giving you 4 innings or 5 innings. That's just kind of how he is. But yeah,
total
yeah.
wins?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if that's a hot take. Listen, I'll highlight it as a hot take for me.
Okay.
I'll highlight it in orange if we need to. But I don't know. I just don't think it was the right pick personally.
I just
for
have like
opening
the
day.
safest picks like possible so far, and you have like Tyler McGill as the best starter.
Yep. Listen, I got the hot takes. All right, so the total wins. I think that there is, in terms of the wait and see, there's a clear floor and a clear ceiling here.
Yeah.
I mean,
I could. So obviously, like, I think by extension, this also is, do the Mets make the playoffs? I think that's also what we're going to answer. I do not think the Mets will make the playoffs this year. I think we're going to be an 83 win team. I think we'll be within 2 games out of the wildcard spot. I do believe that the Diamondbacks are better than us right now. I do believe that the Giants and Padres are a little bit better. And I think the Mets can definitely get in. Never know what can go right. But there is risk. There is risk with this rotation. And if Luis Severino is good, if Minaya is good, if Hauser is serviceable, and if Marte bounces back, if McNeil bounces back, if Beatty shows anything, this team probably wins 90 games or maybe more. And Edwin Diaz is back. That's a super underrated thing. Like, we lost a couple wins last year without Edwin Diaz for sure.
We did. Yeah.
But yeah, I think 83 wins. I like the lineup a lot, especially the top 4. I like the defense. I like the bullpen. And I like the rotation. I think it's a solid team. I just don't think it blows me away. And that's fine. Next year's really the year. I just hope by the deadline that we're either selling or we're assault. Like, I don't want to go all out at the deadline this year because there's no point to me. So 83 wins, we narrowly missed the playoffs. That's my prediction, unfortunately.
All right, well, you have them at 83. I'm actually going to put them at the win total I had them at last year, which is 84. And I think that it's personally, I think that this is on the same level as the team last year. Like, last year, I thought, well, going in, obviously, because I had Edwin Diaz taken into account. You add like the 9 extra wins from the win total last year, which was 75. You obviously had that with Edwin Diaz. You lost a lot of wins last year with Edwin Diaz. You needed him. I personally think it's the same talent level as last year. Like, I really do. But in a good way as compared to a bad way in terms of expectations of what has been spent on this team. I think that this rotation is going to be better than last year. It has to be. If it's worse, then everyone goes. Everyone is like, even, you take some calls for Nimmo and Lindor at that point if it's worse. So that's how bad, if it gets. So I think that in terms of how balanced the team is compared to last year, of how top heavy it was, of last year was supposed to be a 90 to 92, 93 win team. It ended up being a 75 win team. This, I think, is the perfect, let's say, median. I don't know. I'd say that the ceiling is probably 88 with this team.
88.
Yeah, 88's the ceiling. And then the floor is probably 75, 76, 77, something like that. We never know because it's a wait and see to the deadline, and maybe they do improve the team if they are still in the race. We never know. So maybe they do overperform. We never know, and we've seen teams overperform under David Stearns before, so it would be a likely trend. We don't know if the Mets continue the will of time, of course, because they are kind of a team that goes against and defies all odds because they're the Mets. But, overall, I think 84, 83, both perfect there. I think that the talent level compared to last year is pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. And I understand saying that with Verlander and Scherzer, but at the trajectory they were going at last year, I kind of saw it coming. I did see the fall off coming, whether Verlander was coming off the Cy Young year and whether Scherzer was coming off of a good year. Age is age. So, I think that 84 is the perfect number to look at. And listen, 83, this is, that's splitting hairs at this point comparing our two win totals. So I think we can get to the more exciting part, the young and exciting part being the minor leagues. And obviously it's going to be something to keep your eye on. Let's go Mets. Exactly. 85 wins in the last wild card, of course, as long as they're in playoff contention after the deadline. Who chooses the starter, not the manager? Listen, I think, if you're talking about in terms of Quintana, maybe, after that opening day start, if he doesn't do well tomorrow, whatever. But I think that he's still going to give you a solid season overall. I just think at this current moment, how I'm feeling, recency biased, I guess I'm putting into it. I think it's Quintana. I just would not have chosen him for opening day. I'm someone who likes to have my big guns first, and then figure it out afterwards. And I just don't think Quintana is the best pitcher. Jose Quintanilla is getting the ball. Quintanilla, I think, is retired. But okay, so let's get into the prospects, which is actually pretty fun. I think the biggest riser, because, at this point, there were some guys who had a tough year last year. There's a few guys that we can point to. But also there's some guys coming up through the system who were ranked maybe 12th or maybe ranked 19th, and maybe they inch themselves close to the top 10, or maybe they have that kind of breakout season and kind of exceed expectations. So the biggest riser in our farm system, what do you think?
I think the biggest riser is going to be Nolan McLean. I think he's absolutely disgusting. And his slider is in the 3200s. He's got great command. According to Chris Christie's son, the head scout, what is he? The head of player development. He's got great command, according to him. And that he throws high 90s as well. I think he's going to be the biggest riser. And I think he should throw away the bat personally. But I did see him. We did see him hit a home run. I think in a backfield game. If you follow, I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure he hit it. What was it?
It was 112 to the opposite.
112 to the opposite field. Like, holy
I think
shit!
It was.
Is this guy on steroids?
His swing looked shorter, so it's really difficult to see him. Like, I don't think his hitting ceiling is really that high, considering how little contact he makes. If we could just focus on him being a starter, I think this is an incredibly intriguing prospect.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to maximize, his value this year, if it doesn't go well as a two-way player, I'd probably drop it next year. I think that's kind of how you look at it. Like, give him a year to do it if he wants to. Sure. And then the next year, he kind of makes that decision as to what he's going to do. But, if it works from both sides, it works from both sides.
Brett Beatty had a sub-2 ERA in high school.
He did have a sub-2 ERA in high school. He probably should be on the mound right now, to be honest. Maybe that's just not his calling. The hitting just ain't it. My biggest riser, I think I'm going to go with... There is one piece that I would say, but I just don't think that you're going to see much spotlight on him this year, because I think that he's most likely going to be either in St. Lucie by the end of the year or starting in developmental ball. I would have said Jeremy Rodriguez, because I think that he has such a ceiling as a player. He's 17 years old. I just don't think that he's really ready to go into that spotlight just yet. He's kind of in that developmental stage of his career as of right now. So I think what I'm going to look at here, I'm going to go with Colin Houck. And the reason why I say that is because I did like what I saw from him. And again, it's a very small sample as to, from the spring breakout game. Obviously, I like the pull side of this kid. He has a really good frame. And the pitch selection is always been really a concern for him. And, he really does chase a lot. He whiffs a lot. There's some considerable concerns about his ability to make contact. And I didn't see it really in that game. I mean, it seemed like he looked good. But again, I also just really like the frame of this kid. I do like, overall, he's 18, 19 years old. He's very young, coming out of high school. I think that out of all of the young 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds in like that first year of their minor league career, I think that without a doubt, I can say he has the highest floor of anybody. I think that's the best way to say it, where, I think that he does have the highest floor of any of our prospects, not named maybe Drew Gilbert. Like, I think that that's Scott. How I kind of look at Christian Scott. I mean, I'm just talking about position players. But again, yeah, I think that Colin Houck, you're gonna see a spark from him very early, and I think that he's probably gonna start in St. Lucie this year because he was a first round draft pick or competitive balance A pick, of course. How do I feel about Pete Alonso? Hit me nukes and I'll be happy. That's pretty much it. From all the pitchers we've seen from spring, do you think Quintana was the right choice for opening day? I just answered this. I just said this in the thing. I don't think so, and that's why I have him as my most overrated. I don't think that he was the right choice for opening day. I probably would have went with Severino, Minaya, maybe even considered McGill because he's done it before. The only guy I wouldn't have considered behind him would be Adrian Hauser. So that's just my thing. I don't know. When I'm looking at the profile of Freddie Peralta on the other opposing side, I don't think I can match it up with Jose Quintana on opening day, personally. That's just how I look at it. Between Alonso and Martinez, put a lot of potential strikeouts. Again, like we've said, as long as they don't chase. As long as they don't chase, I'm good with it. Don't swing at uncompetitive pitches. That's my deal with power hitters. Anybody else you want to put out there as the biggest riser? Or no?
I think Calvin Ziegler could definitely rise a lot.
Ziegler? Okay, that's a good pick too.
One of the best fastballs I've ever seen in this farm system. I think he might have the best fastball in this farm system.
Okay, I like it. So I mean, we
Sprout
can start with
too. Sprout
as well. Yeah, I mean, I just have to see. We just have to see him pitch. Sure. Yeah, definitely a lot of pitchers. Biggest dropper. This one is actually pretty hard because you do have a few. I mean, technically, it is going to be, no matter what, probably Ronnie Mauricio because he's not going to play this year in terms of his prospect stock.
That doesn't count.
It doesn't count, of course. I don't count anything bad that happens to Ronnie Mauricio. Let's just be real for a second.
Yeah, but I think on the performance level, who is the biggest dropper? If that's what you mean.
Yeah, go ahead. So who do you think is gonna disappoint? Maybe.
I think Mike Vassal's gonna drop a bit. Like, with all respect, like,
yeah, I get it.
Mike Vassal. Yeah. I think he's gonna come up and he'll probably get optioned at some point. He'll probably fall into like the 20s, and I just feel like that's gonna happen. All these guys are prospects. It's too hard to judge them, really.
It is.
Like, if you made me say like an actual like a prospect who is like a lot younger, maybe Jacob Reimer or something. Maybe maybe Kevin Parada. I know I was kind of defending him a little bit ago, but it wasn't the best season ever last year.
No, it wasn't.
And you never know. Alex Ramirez, as much as I don't want to say it, he's not my pick. That's a potential like serious dropper if things don't go right. But my pick is Mike Vassal.
Okay, Mike, that makes sense. What is the news with David Peterson? David Peterson will probably be back. I mean, we don't know if he has a spot on this roster, but he will be healthy at one point. I mean, he was already throwing in spring training, but he most likely will start maybe mid-May, start playing in games. Ronnie Mauricio is most likely out for the year, which sucks. Which prospect do you think will get moved to the bigs first from the minors? I mean, it should be Christian Scott, like we've just said. Like, it really should be. I think he should be the first one to get called up. Jose Budo is not considered a prospect anymore. It was probably supposed to be. Yeah, I think it's Christian Scott. You know, I really do think it is Christian Scott. It should be.
Could be Vassell.
Do I think? I think yeah, Vassell might be the first one. Gilbert, maybe. We'll see how he performs in AAA. We'll see how it works with Marte and him, and how the outfield is kind of configuring itself. So, we'll see what goes on with that. My biggest dropping prospect. Budo. I mean, again, like Amber Rivera right now. Subway to Shea, by the way, great podcast, by the way, and a fellow friend of the channel. Budo, I just don't know. Is he considered a prospect anymore? I don't even know.
No, he's not on the list anymore.
I don't think he is on the list anymore, but
for 2 years,
I guess you can consider him still a rookie. I don't know, still has like rookie status, but you know, where is the Mets farm system ranked overall?
It's in the top half.
Mixed. Yeah, it's been kind of mixed. Yeah. We've had some like at 13 or some at 12. Some have been at 6. Some have been 8. Like there's been a mix. I would say it's hovering around the top 10. Like I would go 11 or 12. Something around there, obviously. I think that in terms of pitching overall, I think we're in the top 10. I personally think we are in the top 10 with pitching. And, you know, maybe you don't say that last year in terms of what you know about them. But, you know, I think we saw a decent showcase of it in the spring breakout game. And, you know, these guys have stuff, and stuff plays in the majors. Let's be real for a second.
That'll be more of a consensus by the end of the year, I think, about our pitching prospects. Could be even higher than 10, honestly. Biggest dropper?
Biggest dropper. Yeah, for me, this is tough. I mean, Vassell makes sense. That's a really good pick. That's tough. That really is tough because there are a lot of guys in that upswing where some guys just disappoint, and then some guys just, you know, reach through it. Reach through their ceiling, and, you know, maybe they're just a lot better. I think that I will go with... I am going to get a lot of shit for this. Ooh. Will I get a lot of shit for it? I don't know. Let's go with Blade Tidwell. I haven't liked a lot of it. I really just haven't. I think that there's a lot of erraticness he needs to work on. And I just am not really been impressed. I think that at one point, maybe, I don't know, not 2 years ago, maybe like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, we probably would have considered him the best pitching prospect. And I don't even know if he's in the top 3 at this current point of how I look at it.
Would you take him over Sprout?
Yeah. Probably Sprout. Sprout is there.
He's a safer prospect because he has the volume. But like,
I'm going to save that for a video of where I'm going to give my top 10 prospects. Guys, let me know if you want Road include with that. We'll deal out both of our top prospect lists, something like that. Tidwell makes sense. Listen, I see a hit and miss with him this year. I don't know. I just have not really liked overall what I've seen in terms of just like sustainability of what you're going to see at the upper levels. And not to mention, another factor that goes into that is he's going to be playing in Double-A, which is a very talented level, and we're going to get an extended look at that because he got a lot of time in Brooklyn last year, and he was pretty good in Brooklyn, but, you know, when he got to Double-A last year, he struggled a little bit, and I think that's, you know, but Do I think he'll drop a lot? No. But I think that you might have a little bit of a step back from him. I do see him as he does have a very high ceiling, in my opinion, as a starter. But maybe as a reliever, they could maximize his stuff or something a little bit better. But overall, I see him as a late blooming prospect, and I feel like there's going to be some struggles with him down the line. And I think that Tidwell is a decent pick for that. But again, listen, I don't know what to tell you, but
we'll see.
From what we've seen, and again, I think Road, you said this on one of our episodes. If he didn't get hurt, he was expected to be a first round talent. So,
yep. Mm-hmm.
So again, over under 35 home runs for Alvarez.
I'm gonna go one homer under. I think 34.
One homer under. Okay.
So under technically.
And who's a utility player? Sure, you say McNeil. What do you mean McNeil for
overrated?
We made this for overrated. We made this point before we even announced them. Overrated does not mean bad. That does not mean bad. It never has meant bad.
You could go back in the stream where I explain it. I make sure I respect him as he has a lot of value, that he is going to play great defense around the field. He has his value. I'm just concerned about his bat.
I think personally, I don't think he's overrated as a player. I think that he's overrated by Mets fans. Like, that's how I look at it, as, they see him as one of their best hitters. He's one of their best bats in the lineup, the biggest weapons, the biggest contributor to the lineup. It's not true. It just is not true. I mean, it's just more of an impactful part to this lineup, especially the everyday lineup. Listen, you can tell me he's a lifetime 300 hitter all you want, but I don't care. Again, 300 hitter, of how I look at it, it's singles rate. That's how I look at batting average. So, I mean, that's just in my opinion. I think that this team is better off without Jeff McNeil, but he's gonna be the opening day second baseman tomorrow. So nothing I can do about it. All right,
he's the best option for that too. So
he is the best option.
I hope he bounces back. I think he can bounce back. I hope he does.
And again, we've talked about this before on our podcast as well, and on some streams as well. If Ronnie was available, he probably would have been shopped around. I mean, there probably was a possibility where Jeff McNeil got shopped around if Ronnie Mauricio was available and healthy, but he's not. McNeil doesn't hit 25 home runs, so he sucks. Dumb thinking. That is not what we're talking about. Okay. You think this year Marte is going to have his comeback season since he's healthy, or is his age going to show and we try to sell him at the deadline? If his age shows, you're not getting anything for him. That I think that's the main thing, where if he plays well and the Mets aren't playing well, you do try to trade him with that contract, but I don't think he has really any trading value at the current 100 percentile, or 99th percentile. I don't think there's really trade value from him. I just don't.
Aging contract, you're gonna have to pay a lot of it. With
it really, you're gonna have to pay a lot of it off. And I am on the side of where there's a strong possibility that you might have to do it as the same treatment as Robinson Cano at the trajectory he's going, which sucks because when he was good, but he's 35 years old, I don't know what to tell you. And you underrate most of the Mets. Well, listen, what have the Mets won for me to tell me that they're high contributors? That's what I mean. At what point do you say, maybe we got to break up part of this core? They haven't won. Again, that's a whole different conversation. But, I'm just telling you, McNeil is not a big factor in this lineup as many people think he is. This lineup has no effect. Listen, Carson needs to get some optimism. Well, listen, he has been a bottom 10 second baseman in terms of OPS in the last 3 years. So I'm just telling you, He's not been good the last 3 years. Whether it has a batting championship in the middle of it, sandwich in the middle of it, he really has not been the Jeff McNeil from 2019.
The Jeff McNeil from 2019 was the juice
ball. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Also, he weirdly, I do think the fact that he bat leadoff had a lot to do with his homers because he could just jump on first pitch fastballs and he swings at so many first pitches. I mean,
but that's not going to be the case.
Jeff McNeil's going to provide WAR. He's going to provide value. And if he can bounce back to a 110, 115 WRC plus hitter, oh my God, I'm taking that. As that could help us make the playoffs easily. And I think that's possible. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Jeff.
All right. Not what we're saying, but fine. That have it your way. We're going to continue with our stream before that gets completely out of hand. Okay. So let's go to the most underrated prospect, because I think we have a deep farm system enough where you can have some guys that fall under the radar that have a decent amount of talent. So what do you think is the most underrated prospect going into this season?
Alex Ramirez.
Okay.
It's Alex Ramirez.
I get it.
In my opinion, this kid is 20, 21. He has all 5 tools. He had a rough season last year, but he's a very raw prospect still to this date. I do believe this is a case of we have to wait a little bit longer to see him tap into his raw tools. He's been working really hard this offseason. He's fine. I've heard, reports that, maybe he wasn't as dedicated or as invested in, the work. But I apparently that's been resolved. He's working at pretty much every day at a facility. He's at AA this year. He's got unbelievable talent, and he's got so much room to grow physically and mature wise. I think that I really do like Alex Ramirez a lot. And I think he's the most underrated prospect. And an honorable mention is Ronnie Mauricio too, because some of the discourse I see about Ronnie Mauricio, it's people forget, he has the best tools of any prospect in the system, in my opinion, by a pretty long shot. He has 80 grade raw power, and he has really solid contact rates too. I feel like Ronnie Mauricio is incredibly.
It's what I hope at what he's at right now, but he may take a while to recover from the ACL tear. But from what we were seeing last year, I hope from what we saw last year in AAA for a long time. I hope that we get that from Alex, that type of hitting profile from Alex Ramirez. I really do hope we get something like that where, he just continues to build up and grow into his frame. But obviously 2 different players, of course. But when you look at Alex Ramirez as a player, he has the same toolsy, above average this, above average that on the scale of all 5 tools. He has that upside too, but he's just a little bit younger as compared to that, and he's a lot more raw compared to Ronnie Mauricio, who also was a very raw prospect when he was signed at 16, 17 years old in 2018, 2017. So,
we could see a very similar trajectory with,
you definitely could. And they're both 6'3" for what we
Ronnie's
know.
Not 6'3".
Ronnie's not 6'3".
He's
There's no way he's 6'3". Yeah, exactly. I don't know. He does not look 6'3". He's got to be 6'5" or 6'4". But again, at one point he was 6. He came in 6'2", 177 or something, and now he's 230, 230, 6'3". A KD situation where he's 7 foot in sneakers, but that's kind of how I look at it with. These raw prospects with so many tools, so much upside. That's how I feel about Alex Ramirez. That's how I feel about Ronnie Mauricio in the different stages of their careers. Most underrated prospect. Ooh, okay. I am actually going to go with...
It's a tough question.
This is hard. This is actually this is a tough one because I think that there's a decent amount of depth here that nobody talks about. I feel like there's a lot of options.
You can say the same as me if you'd like,
You know what? I actually am going to go with, because I think a lot of people thought that he kind of fell off a little bit, and they kind of forgot about him with, the exceptions of Blade and Christian Scott kind of rising. I'm going to go with Dominic Hamill, because I think that that's something that, a lot of people, they're talking about, Brandon Sproat. They're talking about a guy like Blade Tidwell, these high draft stock guys. I believe Hamill was 8th round pick, something like that. Was he 3rd round pick? Or was that Vassell? Vassell was 8th round. Dominic Hamill was
3rd round.
3rd round. Okay. So I feel like that goes a little bit under the radar of where people see the high profile of Tidwell, who could have been a 1st round talent, like we said. You also have Brandon Sproat, who the Mets have adored for a long time. They drafted him twice, for God's sake. And then you have also Mike Vassell, who got all the way up to AAA, that a lot of people know a lot about. But I think that Dominic Hamill gets forget about a lot. You can also say the same about Calvin Ziegler, who's coming back from Tommy John as well. But I think that that's kind of how I look at it, where there's a deep pitching conglomerate in this farm system that a lot of people are not talking about. And the stuff was on display during that breakout game. If you didn't get a chance, watch the highlights, watch a replay of it any way that you can. There was a lot of talent, especially from the pitching side. And I'm hoping that we can maximize it the best way with David Stearns at the helm. And that's my biggest hope for it. Now, anybody else you want to throw out there that, is somebody that can be able to watch, you can watch. Again, Jeremy Rodriguez is another one we can throw out there as well, because I think, he'll be somebody to watch eventually, but not at the current moment.
There's a name going out there, Wilfredo Lara. Might want to look out for him too.
Yeah, that's another one. He's probably going to be in the really developmental league.
He got to St. Lucie last year.
Jesus Baez, who hit that shot to center field in the prospect game. I mean, that's somebody you can maybe look out for. But again, these are like guys who are not going to be the big name or the big at the top of the list, or they're probably not going to. They'll probably go as high as St. Lucie this year. So again, that's not really the biggest spotlight yet into their breakout season.
Anyway, what's the next one? Overrated?
Yeah, let's actually save that for the second to last. I want to go to best prospect, because you can go from a lot of angles with this. But I think you and me have the same best prospect, and that might be spoiling from our from the incoming video. But I think that I personally think it's very clear, but other people would disagree.
Yeah, I definitely, we're talking about Ronnie Mauricio, by the way. I think, especially if you're healthy, he'd be my number one. I do see an argument for Jet Williams with the injury. Ronnie Mauricio, I think, is the most exciting prospect still to me, with his upside.
Yeah. And again, some people see, the stock going down as, he is injured and he is going to miss a year. I mean, that's something you can, but I also would go with Ronnie Mauricio. I think that overall the tools, that's something that's what I look at with prospects, the tools that are ready for the major leagues. I think that the ceiling in terms of those tools, all 5 of those tools, it's the highest for Ronnie Mauricio personally. And I think that, if all goes well, and again, he's just a prospect, you never know if he pans out, but we've really seen him come into his own this last year, and it sucks that we don't see him. It sucks that we're not going to be able to see him this year. And I hope that he recovers well, because he's talented as hell.
My 2 favorite players blew out their knees 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
so,
that's. Everything I touch pretty much dies. Like every one of my favorite players always gets hurt. It started with Wright at the beginning, and every single player that I like, they always just get hurt and they're out for a extended period of time, which is ridiculous. But,
Should we go to
get well soon,
2024?
Mauricio. We miss you. I hope to see him back real soon. Don't rush him back, though.
Yeah, do not rush him back.
Don't rush him back.
Don't bring him back this year. Do not.
Yeah, I don't want to see
next
that.
year.
Yeah, of course. I don't need him to play hero ball at all, no matter how miserable the possibility of Brett Beatty could be, or maybe Jeff McNeil's not playing well. I'd much rather trade for an infielder than rush Ronnie Mauricio up, because I think that we've been patient enough with him so far in the minor leagues throughout his entire career. I mean, we signed him at like age 17. He's 22 now. He's going to be 23 next year. I think you can wait this one out. I'm willing to wait it out for Ronnie Mauricio, because I think he's going to be a special player if he taps into it. Who would you compare Ronnie to in the MLB currently? That's a good question.
I have a comp. Not that he'll be as good as this guy. I think Rafael Devers is a great comp offensively.
That's a good one. That is good.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to hit as well as Devers, but they both chase a little bit. They both have good contact rates. They both have unbelievable raw power. Both are going to be third basemen at the major league level, I'm sure. Ronnie's. I feel like people underrate Ronnie's speed aspect. Like, he gets really good jumps on his steals too. Like, I don't know. Like, I was watching Draftnik Marks and his co-host on Mets Up. I think his name is James. They did their top 10 prospects list, and I noticed Ronnie wasn't there. I'm sure it's because of the injury, which is valid.
Or maybe he's already been to the majors. Some people don't consider him a prospect.
Yeah. Maybe they think he graduated. Yeah. So there's that.
I mean, that's also a decent criteria too. I'm not going to bash that. Like, if you think that Ronnie Mauricio is not considered a prospect because he already made his major league debut, that's fine. Like, if you think so, but he still has the prospect status technically. He only really played like less than a month. So I think that he still is a prospect, and I still think that, he still has a lot of room to grow. He's, in that stage. But yeah, talent level the same. What is he, dude? What are you going on about? What is this? I mean, what is going on?
I love this guy.
Okay. You gotta be trolling here. All right. So let's go to most overrated. And I think that this is a lot easier, to be honest. I think that it's very easy because there are prospect rankings out there. There are people that like a prospect better than others. And I think that if you look at, I don't know, because you have a lot of options, again, because the farm system is a lot deeper. I mean, I'll start off with my overrated pick. I think we all know where I'm going with this. I've pretty much preached it for a long time. And I want to say that, again, overrated does not mean bad. It does not mean bad. And I think that this certain player, I think that he will be a rosterable player, possibly this year, possibly next year. I think that he will be a solid major league player. There's tools there that apply to the major leagues. But in terms of what we see from prospect rankings, and we see from Mets fans who believe that he is a superstar, a future all-star caliber player, I'm slowing the rolls on that a little bit. Not to mention he's 20 years old, but Jet Williams is definitely the most overrated prospect in this system. And listen, again, I have been hard on him. Most of it I'm just trolling and just being overreactionary. But I believe that Jet Williams definitely gets a lot more hype than he should, as compared to a lot of other prospects who I think their tools apply to the major leagues a little bit better. I think Mets fans really need to slow their roll on Jet Williams. I understand he wants to be in the majors this year and make an impact this year. Personally, I just don't see him as that big impact player that other Mets fans see him as. And that's how I feel. I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think that he is the star that everyone thinks he is going to be. And there's reasons behind that, and I'll get into that in my prospect video. But As for Jet Williams, I just don't see him on the level as other Mets fans do. I
Yeah.
think that was the best way to
Okay.
explain it.
I like Jet Williams a lot. He's grown a lot on me, but I hear you. My pick is going to be Mike Vassell. Uh,
Okay.
it might be boring. I don't really think any of these prospects are that overrated.
Yeah.
I think prospects are. It's really difficult to evaluate
Yeah.
prospects in general.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I'm going to go with Mike Vassell because I think there's a chance that maybe he becomes like an emergency starter guy, and he's ranked 11 on Pipeline, and there's guys like
Yeah.
Sproat and Hamill behind him, and McLean and Ziegler. Like, I don't know, man. It's no disrespect. I just don't. I think there's. I think that. Yeah, he's not my favorite pitching prospect on the team, and not that I don't think he can be a good backhand guy. I just think he's a little bit too high in the rankings. So I'm gonna go with Mike Vassell.
Yeah, I think that he did get that big jump from Double A, and everybody really liked him. He also had that big spotlight on him of how he developed during the season and kind of moved himself to like that four seam away from that sinker type of movement piece. And listen, I think that he will be a solid 5 at ceiling, but I don't think he's on the level of any of the other pitching prospects as compared to the guys like whether you want to talk about Ziegler or Hamill or Sproat or even Nolan McLean, and in some cases in terms of upside, Blade Tidwell. So I think that Vassell is going to have a solid contribution to this roster eventually, to this team, but it's not going to be as explosive as people think he is. In terms of his ranking on Pipeline, overall he's a 5. He's a number 5 starter at best in a rotation. Okay, so 2024 MLB impact. So which prospect do you believe will have the biggest impact in the major leagues this year? I think that there's kind of dumbed down the selection a little bit, but I think that you've got it. Yeah,
it's Christian Scott. Who realistically, who else could it be? Unless Jeff gets traded mid-year and Acuna comes up, I don't think Acuna is as good as Christian Scott.
Yeah, okay.
I feel like I've just been, talking about how much I love Christian Scott for so long on these streams and stuff. But I just really do think that he can be a dangerous arm to throw out if we make the playoffs. Kind of gives me that Evaldi vibes in 2018, gives me that Freddie Peralta vibes. So they just throw out this young, exciting arm that they have, and they just shut down the postseason lineup. I just get those vibes from Christian Scott, man.
I think it's a good pick. I mean, obviously, I think that he is one of the few that are on the call to be called up eventually, and I think he will. At this current moment, I think that there's not going to be much of an adjustment period for him. I think he will succeed very quickly. I do think he will adjust to the major leagues very quickly, and we'll see how he does in AAA. You never know; the hitting environment is so crazy there. But in terms of guys, I think that he's, again, like we've said, he's ready for the major leagues. I think that he is. I mean, in terms of workload, again, like we said, it could be something that could be built up in the major leagues. Maybe he does start out of the bullpen. Maybe he does get long relief. You have those innovative ways under David Stearns of how you can ramp these guys up. And hopefully they do take advantage of that. Now, I'm obviously going to put somebody else on here. I'm going to say Drew Gilbert because I think that he will be up here eventually, and we will get a decent amount of playing time from him, mainly because of just how I feel about Starling Marte. I just don't know what I'm going to get from him. And, he is going to be one of the guys on the call very early in the season if Marte starts to struggle. Now, you do have a lot of options in the outfield. I think that DJ Stewart's obviously going to be sent down once JD Martinez is up. McNeil can play the outfield, but again, I don't really want him playing the outfield. I think that the best value you can get from him is at second base. I think that, Drew Gilbert is going to be one of the guys that does get called up. And, I think that, like we've said, out of all of our prospects, And I said this on our podcast last week. You know, he is one of the highest floors out of our entire prospects. I think that, you know, at base, you're going to get a quality major league player who belongs on a major league roster when he is called up. The ceiling, it's a little predetermined, I say, as compared to a lot of these other prospects where, you know, you have just a solid outfielder. You know, is Nimmo a decent? I don't know. Like a ceiling for him, it's hard to tell, but he's definitely the most seasoned, I'd say, out of all of our position players.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Nimmo comp, maybe just a level below, because Nimmo's a great player. He's one of the 40 best players in MLB in my eyes. So like that's like
Okay.
if Drew Gilbert becomes Brandon Nimmo, like that's unbelievable value.
It is really good value. I mean, another guy you probably can put in there is I don't know, like a big, like just a stronger left-handed bat with a lot of tools. I mean, you know, like he's undersized, but he's like he's well grown into his frame. I don't know how to really compare that, to be honest, but I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I'd have to think about that because I will give some floors and ceilings in that prospect video. But we have gone 2 hours for this stream. We will be on for 5 more minutes, I think, and then we'll throw it in for the night. I wish we could have gotten to some live call-ins. It would have been nice to get some opinions, but this one just kind of went off the rails a little bit. I expected us to be only live for an hour for this portion of the live stream. We were live for 2 hours, so I think we're gonna stop here, but we'll be live for another 5 minutes. Last questions, comments, let us know in the chat right now. Any questions that you have for opening day. I'd say that any other predictions. I saw this on Twitter of people talking about the All-Star selections for the Mets this year. Is there anybody that you'd sneak in there, or the usual?
I think 3. I'm going to go with Pete, Lindor, and I'm going to go with Edwin Diaz. I don't think Nimmo's marketable to make it. I think at this point it's kind of like
there's a possibility,
because he hasn't made it yet, and he should have made it at least 3 times. So it's like, you know, I'm not sure if he'll ever get it, and he deserves to, for sure. Edwin Diaz goes without saying, you know, he's the best reliever in the game. Pete Alonso makes it every year, one of the best hitters in the game. I think who else would make it, though? I'm not sure. Maybe a super underrated pick would be Severino. Could be in there.
We've seen that ability from him before, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
So
I forget that Senga made it last year.
He did make it last year, which I think Diaz, he's going to get it again. I think that you'll get it from Pete Alonso. Lindor has seemed to get snubbed ever since he's been a Met. And then, you know, obviously the case for Brandon Nimmo, I think that he's the best player in all of baseball to not get an all-star selection. I truly believe that. I truly believe that. Now, again, you know, it all depends on how good your team is, of how many all-stars you have. But, you know, it's been a while. He's been in the league for a while. I mean, he's coming into what? He's going to be 30 this year, 31, something like that. So
he's just turned 31.
He just turned 31, yesterday, or So this week he just turned 31. So, you know, he's had a decent career so far. I think he's going to go down as one of the best Mets outfielders. I mean, I think that he already is. I already would put him on like that Mount Rushmore of Mets outfielders, or I think that he's had an incredible Mets career so far. And
the fact that he's been able to stay healthy the past 2 seasons too, completely not a single IL stint, is huge too for that title of one of the best Mets outfielders.
Yeah, of course.
As well.
And then also with like the lack of catchers in the National League, you do have less catching, less competition. I mean, you have Will Smith, and then you have Real Muto, if you think Real Muto is still a decent player. I mean, he's a good player. And then you have Sean Murphy, stuff like that. You could see, I mean, with the injuries to catchers that they go through, you could see a a possibility where Francisco Alvarez gets in. Like maybe if he does, because he is an exciting player, young and exciting player, and if he does show out, there's a possibility where he does get the selection. But other than that, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Last topic of the day here, score prediction for opening day.
Mets win 4-2.
4-2. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Quintana gives up 2 runs in 5 innings. Bullpen shuts it down. Edwin Diaz strikes out the side to the trumpets.
Okay, cool. I like it. I'm gonna go with.
I gotta go with offense too, right? I'm gonna say Harrison Bader RBI single.
I think Bader is gonna be a really good opening day.
I get those vibes
for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Shit.
But
Starling Marte's really good in the first home game every year.
Yeah,
he's a homer.
I don't know.
In first 2 home games. So maybe Marte will hit a homer. I feel like Lindor is gonna hit a homer though. I just get the vibe.
I think that I don't know. I think it could go either way this year. Like I think that it'll either be a disappointing or a very encouraging performance. I think that it's like one or the other. Like you can go really, really bad or really, really good. And again, that kind of has me like thinking of like Quintana again. Like I just don't think that was the right move, but
it doesn't matter, man.
I'm gonna go with the Mets are gonna win. I'm gonna go 6-4. I think that you're gonna get a decent amount of strikes thrown in the strike zone. Actually, I'll change it. I'll go 5-4. I'll go 5-4. I think that you're gonna see some top heavy lineup play that you kind of expect. But I think that you'll get a decent amount of offense because I'm pretty sure Lindor and Pete have pretty decent numbers against Freddie Peralta, I believe. So, we'll see what goes on with that. But other than that, I think we're going to hop off here. Thanks to Road for joining me as per usual. And I'm sure that he'll be on the next episode of the podcast as well. And we talked about the first week of games, which is going to be very exciting. Tomorrow, opening day, which was delayed today. It was supposed to be today, but tomorrow is going to be. And I think that, we can go into this year with 0 expectations and kind of be satisfied personally. And I think that we're definitely going to outperform a lot of expectations when currently you have a roster that can go either way. I think it's very pivotal, and I think that we're going to get what we can get, and hopefully we can maximize the talent of everybody on this roster and have 26 great players, so we don't have to do a lot of ins and outs. But there is a lot of safety net here, which I'm really happy about, and I like this team that Stearns has constructed from the expectation that he's put on it. And I'm excited, and I can't wait to see JD Martinez here, which, we're going to have to wait a little bit while, but that's when you'll see the complete team. But first, we get the first taste of it this week. Yeah. So we'll see you guys next time. Podcast comes out on Tuesday every single week, premiere 4 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to check out our 30 projections at 30 days. Before the season even starts. You got hours ticking by before that goes. So thank you for the support on that as well. And we'll have content throughout all year as well throughout the baseball season. I'm excited. Let's go Mets. We'll see you guys next time. And on to opening day we go. We'll see you guys.
Peace.